It is 10 o'clock, and I believe we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the July 2025 meeting of the Maryland Higher Education Commission. We're expecting close to perfect attendance today from our 12 commissioners, and including 2 new commissioners that we look forward to introducing. So far on the call, and it's a little hard with Google Meet, but I think we have Commissioner Bands, Commissioner Burnham, Commissioner Howe, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Warmack, our new student commissioner, who I'm about to introduce, Commissioner Sarah O'Trey. And then we will be joined, if she's not with us already, by our other new commissioner, Commissioner Polonio. Is she on yet? Can you tell, Alex? Not yet.
No,
okay.
I don't see her yet.
And then we're also expecting a couple of other commissioners to join, but we do have a quorum. And so I will begin my remarks welcoming our 2 new commissioners. I will start with our student commissioner, Commissioner Sarah O'Trey. Commissioner O'Trey, would you put your camera on, or maybe it is on, but I can't see it. I would love everyone to get to see you as we introduce you. There you go.
The background is just a little wonky. I think my lighting of where I'm sitting is a little harder to see with the background.
Excellent. Well, we can see you now, at least a sort of a silhouette of you, a profile. It's very nice to see you. We want to, on behalf of all of the commissioners in the agency, want to welcome you for your 1-year term as a student commissioner to the Maryland Higher Education Commission. Commissioner O'Trey is a native Marylander from Western Maryland, Hagerstown, and she is a rising junior at the University of Maryland College Park. She is a Terp. So Commissioner O'Trey, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself briefly, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much for that quick intro. And yes, I'm very excited to start working with everyone and get the ball rolling. So much like Commissioner Motz mentioned, I am a rising junior. I do go to the University of Maryland. I'm studying public health practice and government and politics of double major. So I'm really excited to kind of see how my interests kind of are really put into play through the Maryland Higher Education Commission. I'm excited to use my skills to help students both at my university and all the universities that are served under the Maryland Higher Education Commission. So I'm not that exciting, but I am really excited to start working with them. Thank you.
Welcome. We're very happy to have you. And I would just note for the record, we have been joined by Commissioner Agu and Commissioner Duke. So 10 of our 12 commissioners are here this morning. I think we're still waiting on our other new commissioner, Commissioner Polonio. So let's pause on that. I would like to, Secretary Rye, after your remarks, come back and introduce her, because we want to welcome our new commissioner. But I will turn the floor over to you, Dr. Rye. I think you're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair Moss. Good morning, everyone. I also want to welcome our new commissioner, Commissioner Otway and Commissioner Poliano. Commissioner Poliano will be joining us hopefully in next few minutes. Really excited to have our new commissioners along with our returning commissioners as well. Again, welcome to our July 2025 meeting of Maryland Higher Education Commission. It looks like summer is just flying by. I just attended some commencement ceremonies not so long ago. And now, just probably in a month, we'll be welcoming new and returning students to our campuses. Some will walk through the doors of their respective colleges and universities for the first time, eyes wide open and awaiting for the adventures that lie ahead for them. And others will return ready to reconnect with their peers and the faculty and staff members they have come to know and love. We are really, really looking forward to serving all our students. The staff here at Maryland Higher Education Commission plays a vital role in ensuring that the students are matriculating at our institutions of higher education have the tools and the resources that they need to be successful, including the adequate academic programs. Members of our academic affairs team work diligently to vet the programs that are brought forth for approval. Over the last month, MHEC has approved 6 new degree and certificate programs. And in the past 12 months, academic program review has fully processed 505 proposals, 502 of which were approved. This represents a 99.41% program approval rate. 96 of those proposals were for new degree and certificate programs. Moving forward, I plan to provide monthly updates on program approvals during each commission meeting to keep all its stakeholders informed and aware. As part of the implementation of House Bill 1244, public and private institutions of higher education must submit a letter of intent to MHEC for a new graduate level programs the institution intends to propose in the upcoming 6-month to 2-year period. This letter is intended to facilitate a collaboration between institutions and allow the Commission to provide early feedback regarding concerns about unnecessary or unreasonable program duplication. I want to extend my thanks to the Program Review Proposal Advisory Council for helping to streamline the review process for MHEC staff and commissioners. You will hear more about the letter of intent template from Dr. Dow later in today's meeting. I am proud to announce that a steering committee has been formed to build a new state plan for higher education. This committee is crucial to Maryland creating a state plan that will be the guiding map for higher education over the next 5 years. The group met for the first time last Friday to begin discussions on how best to ensure that all Marylanders have access to high quality, equitable, and affordable education. With a solid state plan developed by representatives from institutions of higher education in partnership with all our stakeholders, we know that we can produce a homegrown talent and advance the economy by keeping professionals who are trained in high demand fields working in the state. I want to thank the members of steering committee who represent academia, business, government, and other segments and bring various levels of expertise to the table. I am confident that their work will result in a plan that will advance post-secondary education in this contemporary environment. Vice Chair Agu and Deputy Secretary Kiros Livanis will share more about the work of the steering committee later in this meeting. MHEC's Office of Research and Policy Analysis develops dashboards that provide state policymakers, campus administrators, and the general public with the statistical information on post-secondary education in Maryland. The team recently debuted a new academic momentum dashboard that helps answer key questions related to Maryland's 2013 CCR-CCA. It tracks momentum metrics, reveals key data trends on topics including credit attempted versus credit earned, fall to spring retention, and many more data that could help us with the student success and completion. I want to thank Eliza Kritz for her diligent work on getting this particular dashboard up and running. Dr. Barbara Schmertz will give a formal presentation and demonstration during the August Commission meeting on this dashboard. We are delighted to have 2 special guest presenters joining us today. Please join me in welcoming Kamal Eshab, Senior Advisor and Director for Immigrant Affairs for the State of Maryland, and Tom Harnish, the State Higher Education Executive Officer, Vice President for Government Relations. Both Kamal and Tom will share some insights on federal policy, what's happening in Washington, and how it affects our operations here in our state of Maryland. Despite the challenges higher education may be facing due to policy changes, and other external disruptions, we will continue to stand firm in our mission to keep students and their needs at the forefront of our work. We stand firm on the mantra set by our Governor Moore and his administration to leave no one behind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary Rai. The next item on our agenda is public comments. The last time I checked in with the agency staff team, nobody had signed up for public comments. Is that still the case?
That's correct.
Okay, great. We will move on to meeting minutes approval from our last meeting on June 26th. Is there a, first of all, I want to defer to our Assistant Attorney General, Ms. Ward. Is there a certain way that we should be moving approval of these minutes?
No. No.
No, so anybody can move approval?
Yes.
All right.
I move the approval of the minutes from the last meeting of the Maryland Higher Education Commission.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or declines? Commissioner Dukes, good morning. I think you're on mute, ma'am.
I am. I will abstain because I was not at the meeting. Thank you.
Understood. Okay. Please note for the record, Commissioner Dukes says abstain. We have one abstention. Many ayes. Are there any nays? All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, federal policy updates. The Secretary just introduced our speakers. Secretary, would you like to, or Deputy Secretary, which one of you would like to formally introduce?
Deputy Secretary will introduce.
Excellent. All right, Deputy Secretary, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, buenos dias, and greetings from the universities at Shady Coral. It's great to be here with you all today. I'm really excited to introduce our next two speakers who have been wonderful partners to the agency, particularly as we navigate the changes that are happening in the federal space related to actions going on in DC that impact higher education. We're going to start with our colleague here in state government, Kamal Esahad, hopefully to provide some local context. He'll be able to answer any questions, and then we'll transition over to Tom Harnish from SHIO, who will then also provide some national context. Commissioners will have an opportunity to ask any questions of our two speakers, so we welcome you to ask those at the end of each of their comments. But if Kamal is with us, I'd invite him to come on screen. And if not, we can start with Tom, knowing that these are two very busy individuals.
Hi, Deputy Secretary. Can you hear me? Can folks hear me?
We can. We can't see you, but we can hear you. So that's great.
I hope it's okay if I stay off camera. I have some bandwidth issues. If that's all right. But folks can hear me clearly. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
So
okay. Let's not mess with it and keep it as is. Obviously, lots happening on the immigration front. Several policy changes every day, and several elements of the original Big Beautiful Act that was signed into law on July 4th relate to immigration issues. So I won't try to purport to cover everything, but I want to hit on maybe four key items with particular relevance to the higher education community. The first thing I want to speak to is 2 weeks ago, I think on July 10th, the Department of Education issued, I think it's an interpretive rule. Formally, it's an interpretive rule that is purporting to change programs that are considered federal public benefits. And what that means is that they would then be subject to citizenship and status eligibility requirements. Specifically, beneficiaries would have to demonstrate that they're qualified aliens, which is a category that includes lawful permanent residents, asylees, refugees, and other smaller categories. And this Department of Education interpretive rule was issued around the same time as announcements, policies issued by several other federal agencies, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and perhaps others. So this was one among several federal announcements, federal policy announcements, changing the universe of who's eligible, or purporting to change the universe of who's eligible for certain programs. And in this particular context, the DOE guidance, functionally rescinded a letter from the 1990s that exempted certain career, technical, and adult education programs from being subject to the qualified alien test. This is a pretty significant set of changes across government, and I think we're, including our colleagues at MHEC, are still trying to wrap our heads around the various implications, both for programs we administer or help administer as a state, but also programs that are administered by other entities and ultimately affect Marylanders. And as you may know, the Attorney General joined, I believe, 20 other states earlier this week in filing a lawsuit against a wide array of these policy changes, including the ones made by the U.S. Department of Education. So that this is pretty significant development. It's subject to litigation. We'll see how it transpires, but that's the first item I wanted to make sure folks were aware of. A couple of things in the realm of visa.
If I could just jump in on that piece and let the commission know, I want to acknowledge the work of our Attorney General here on staff, Kimberly Ward, and others who are on the team. I just also want to let the commission know that we're in communication, thanks to helping facilitate that Kamal, with our colleagues at the Maryland State Department of Education as well, to make sure that there is alignment in how the state is addressing this particular issue across several of the state agencies. So I just want to provide that voiceover and thank AG Ward, who I know was talking to her counterpart at MSDE yesterday morning as well. Thanks, Kamal. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary, for that context. A couple things in the world of visa issuance. Obviously the big change here over the past 6 months are these visa cancellations and CVIS record terminations, and there's been a lot of back and forth on that, and some elements of that are still remain in litigation. But I want to highlight a couple of other elements. At some point in May, I believe towards the end of May, the State Department essentially stopped taking new student visa interviews, globally, and that was, in order, as was announced, to allow for changes in visa issuance policy, particularly in relation to social media vetting. Those student visa interviews have resumed as of late last month, at least as announced by the State Department, and a new social media policy has been put in effect, which basically makes explicit that vetting of student social media is an explicit part of the process, and requires applicants for these visas to both reveal what their social media accounts are, and also kind of make them open to the public. And so the visas are the visa interviews are continuing, but subject to this this new policy. Relatedly or separately, late last month, the the federal government, indicated through, an update on OMB's website, Office of Management Budget, that it intends to propose a regulation that essentially changes the duration of stay for student visa holders and others enter the United States. So in very basic terms, when a student visa holder comes to the US, they are permitted to stay for something called, what's called duration of status, for really as long as the academic program that they are here to complete takes. And I think, that's been in effect for some time, and it's meant to really enable, create some flexibility for, students to be able to participate. Sometimes programs take longer, sometimes students hop on to, further, higher education. And so that's the baseline. That's what has been in place for quite some time. This proposed rule, I think folks think what it will do is eliminate this duration of status flexibility and have a set end date. So when a student visa holder comes to the United States, they will have, a specific date by which they have to depart. And if, and they would have, and if they want to stay in the US longer, they would either have to take specific steps to extend their status or leave the United States and come back on another visa. And then the last thing I want to flag is, one of the bills that our General Assembly, the state legislature, passed this session, HB 1222, addressed what's called sensitive locations, places of where people receive education, healthcare, and seeking to keep those facilities and those places accessible to the public, addressing the fear that some may have that immigration enforcement may take place at these facilities. And specifically what that law requires is that the Attorney General publish guidance that informs educational institutions, health providers, and other facilities that interact with the general public with some guidance with how to interact with immigration enforcement. So the first update there is that the guidance is out. It was published, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And if those of you, who haven't seen it, I can put it in the chat, or maybe one of my colleagues here can include it. I think it's very helpful compilation of information that I think you and folks in your communities would find useful. That's the first thing the bill does. The second thing that the bill does is it requires units of state and local government that are involved in education, that provide education or healthcare, to have policies in place by October 1st, consistent with the Attorney General's guidance. So, and that requirement will have an effect on certain institutions of higher education in the state of Maryland. Thank you, Deputy Secretary, for linking to the document. And then very briefly, the last thing I'll say, the law that I mentioned earlier that the President signed on July 4th, the original Big Beautiful Act, several immigration changes. I'll just highlight one, which is an updated fee schedule, which for the first time will introduce fees for individuals who are applying for certain visas or receiving certain documents upon their entry in the United States. And so at a minimum, these individuals will have to pay approximately $274 more to receive, for the various paperwork. Some will have to pay more. And then this has nothing to do with individuals who will want to apply for a green card or asylum or other issues. There are even greater fees for those applications. But at a minimum, someone applying for a visa will have to pay $250, and someone seeking a card at the port of entry, a 994 card, would have to pay an additional $24. I'll stop there and hand it back to you, Deputy Secretary.
I think Commissioner Howe has a question. Floor is yours.
Well, it is astonishing to me that all we have to abide by all these new changes. I'm not even sure we have a U.S. Department of Education anymore because I think President Trump is trying to abolish it. But can you tell me, in your estimation, how significant it will be for both colleges and universities and the students to know about these requirements and then to perform and do whatever they have to do to comply?
So, and Commissioner, just to clarify, are you speaking to the requirements about who's eligible for certain technical or vocational programs, or the visa eligibility rules and changes?
I'm speaking,
Or all of it,
right. Well, all of it, but I'm speaking more about this visa eligibility thing. And if students don't have $274 to pay for this new thing that they have to do, what in the world are they going to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the student community is an interesting one, because you've got different profiles, right? You have existing students who people who've been students in the United States, who have some network, who are plugged in with different organizations, student groups, etc. And then you have first-time students who have no link to really entities that would give them sort of information and updates about what's happening. My sense is that for the latter, there may be folks who are finding out about some of this information for the first time later in the process, right after they've received admission and accepted an offer, and are then going through the requisite paperwork. But the short answer is it is a concern I have, how the rapidly evolving immigration policy landscape makes it hard for people to not only know their rights but also their legal obligations, and that's really true across the board. That's true even for people who've longtime residents in the United States who are now subject to a registration requirement, for example, or have to carry their papers with them at all time. And we've seen now instances in certain parts of the country where individuals have been charged with criminal offenses for not carrying their papers on them, right? And they're being criminally prosecuted, for these offenses. So that it is a significant challenge across the board, and I think it could be particularly acute for first-time international students who don't have a network in this country. Thank you for the response.
Kamal, I just wanted to emphasize this change on duration of status. In current system, once a student gets a visa, they stamp maybe for 2 years, but their I-20 paper will say duration of status. What it means is that when they come to this country, they have to register as a full-time student. They cannot be part-time in the current system as well. But duration of status allows them, suppose they change their major. So suppose they change the major, it allows them the flexibility to change the major. Suppose they finish undergraduate degree, it allows them to obtain a graduate degree. But all throughout, they have to be a full-time student. Sometimes, there are medical issues and other issues that they have to take a break or drop out a couple of classes. It gives them some additional opportunity to complete their degrees as well. But with this change, it appears that they will have to go outside the country and will have to apply again for a visa to come back, either to complete their current academic program, or if they want to go for graduate and other degrees. So that's how I see the change, and this can have a substantial negative effect on the students.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Ashab, were you done with your presentation?
I am done. I am done. Thank you all
Excellent.
for having me and for those questions.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Director Saheb. It's wonderful to have you as a colleague and a partner, and appreciate all the work you're doing. Just as a reminder to our commissioners, the governor and his team have several working groups that meet throughout the week to discuss several of these issues. Our Chief of Staff Majors is our representative on this particular group that talks about immigration. There's another group that meets on Tuesdays that talks about civil rights. There's a group that meets on Friday that talks about everything. So please know that this is something that the team here at MHEC is constantly paying attention to, not only navigating, but also trying to figure out how we can best support our institutions as they support our students who are also trying to figure out how these changes impact their studies. With that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Harnish from SHIO to give us a sense of some of the other implications coming out of the OBBBA. I have a hard time using the official name, admittedly. Thanks, Tom.
Well, thank you, Elena. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you again. And Madam Chair and members of the Commission, thank you for the invitation to join you. I do want to talk about the mostly about the higher education provisions that were in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was signed by President Trump on July 4th. It does include a few changes that from an earlier version, from a House version as well as a Senate version. So where we landed, I'll just hit on some of the main parts of it, but I do welcome all of your questions. First key aspect of it is that there will be an exemption of assets on the FAFSA. So federal student aid will exempt the assets of family farms, small businesses with less than 100 employees. And at the last minute, they also included commercial fishing businesses will be exempted. Those assets will not be calculated on the FAFSA. That will take effect on July 1 of 2026. The second is on loan limits. So undergraduate loan limits subsidies will remain unchanged. So that's an earlier version of the bill did take out subsidized undergraduate student loans. That was ultimately not included in the final version, but it does end graduate plus loans. So those are for graduate students and professional students that go up to the cost of attendance. So those loans are going to end on July 1 of 2026. And now for graduate students, the federal government is going to offer them for master's students. They're going to be allowed to take on unsubsidized federal loans up to $20,500 a year for a lifetime total of $100,000. For professional programs, so those are the students going to become doctors, lawyers, PhDs, etc. They're going to be capped out at $50,000 a year annually with a lifetime total of $200,000. So this is going to be in addition to the current undergraduate caps. So the total federal loans that a student could take out under this new law will be $257,000. In addition, the Parent Plus loan is going to be capped out at $20,000 annually with a $65,000 lifetime limit per student. So those are new loan limits that the federal government has put in place. For loan repayment, most of the savings that came from this program came from the loan repayment provisions that were included in this. So after July 1, 2026, student loan borrowers, their federal student loans can be repaid using either a standard repayment plan or an income-driven repayment plan known as the Repayment Assistance Plan, RAP. And right now, of course, there's a whole plethora of student loan repayment programs out there, particularly the SAVE program that's put in place by President Biden. That's the most generous program. This is going to after July 1, 2026, condense that down to two loan repayment programs, one standard and one based on income. And then they're going to have different options available for those that are currently for loans that were taken out before July 1 of 2026. So that is where we're at on loan repayment. On Pell Grants, one of the big changes here in the loan is that it is going to establish workforce Pell Grants for accredited providers. An earlier version of the bill included non-accredited, non-institutional providers. So it's going to establish workforce Pell for accredited providers. What is workforce Pell? It is Pell Grants for very short-term programs. So these are programs between 150 to 600 clock hours and 8 to 15 weeks. So relatively short programs. If they're above that, they would go into the traditional Pell program. But these are for workforce Pell. This needs to be approved. These short-term programs must be approved by the governor in consultation with the state workforce board. There are a few programs that would not be included, such as correspondence courses. These courses must either be stackable or portable, or prepare students for a job with a single credential. There are guardrails on this. The programs have to be, the U.S. Secretary of Education has to determine that the program has been operating for at least a year, that it has a 70% verified completion rate, and that it's 70% job placement rate within 180 days. And then the tuition and fees must not exceed the value added earnings, which is the median earnings minus 150% of poverty. So that is a new program that is going to be available starting July 1 of 2026. There are also other provisions on the Pell Grant that were included in the bill. So it does include $10.5 billion in mandatory funds for FY26. There is a shortfall in the Pell Grant program, so this will get us through the next 2 years with those new additional funds. There is a provision in here that students are ineligible for the Pell Grant if students have their total cost of attendance already covered from other sources. I reached out to the Senate on this to learn more. I know there's been a lot of concerns in the higher education community about what that all is about. And the response that I received was that that is about Division I full ride scholarships. So before you take into anything, if you get a full ride scholarship then you will not be eligible for a Pell Grant. So that at least that's what the Senate told me, and that's what they that's how they envision that particular provision is only applying to those with those full ride scholarships before factoring in Pell Grants. So it does not look like it includes state-based programs that integrate the Pell Grant into their program. It also includes minor provisions related to foreign income included in the gross income for Pell Grants. So there are some minor tweaks to the Pell Grant program and methodology, as well as, of course, including that new workforce Pell provision.
Mr. Harnish, if you could, this is so helpful. If you could pause there. I see a hand raised by Mr. Al Dorset, who leads our state's financial aid programs, and he may have something to add.
Yes, Al.
Mr. Dorset?
Yep.
All right, Thomas. Can we look into that more? Because based off my reading of Section 484D, it calls for Pell to be considered a last dollar. So based off what the bill is reading, state aid, institutional aid has to be considered before Pell. And if the student goes over the cost of attendance, then Pell is reduced. I know in Maryland, as well as other states, we'll need to look at our calculation based off what I'm reading, because as we currently determine our guaranteed access grant, part of the formula is Pell first, and then determining the student's need. Based off this change, we'll have to determine the student's need before Pell is actually considered.
Okay.
That would be a huge sea change for Maryland, what Mr. Dorsett just described. So if we could get the answer to that sooner rather than later, that will very much change how we do things if state aid is considered last dollar.
Yes, I welcome the opportunity to talk with Mr. Dorsett and learn more about the Maryland program and if it's applicable in this situation. But the response I received from the Senate, and I'm just reading here, basically, if a student already has their entire full cost of attendance covered prior to going through the financial aid process, they are ineligible for Pell. It would really only affect students with full athletic scholarships. But again, that is the response I get. It also has to go through negotiated rulemaking. People may read it in different ways. So welcome the opportunity to talk and see how this could affect state-based programs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a time frame on that? Because here in the state, we're changing financial aid. The legislature passed a law a couple of years ago, decentralizing how we do it and giving it to the colleges. So this is a really big issue for us. Like,
It is.
you know, I'm sure it is for other states too. Do you have any sense of when we'll get some clarity on that?
Yeah. So what I have heard is that negotiated rulemaking on the financial aid provisions will start in the fall. So that really fills in the blanks about how this all will be administered and some of the rules and regulations related to that. But I have not heard, there's no official word on that. That's just what I've heard, is that negotiated rulemaking will start in the fall.
Okay. I see a couple of my fellow commissioners have questions, including one of our new commissioners, Commissioner Polonio. Please ask your question, and later I will get the chance to introduce you, and then we'll be followed by Commissioner Agu.
Thank you. My question has to do, a lot of students receive small scholarships from like the fire department or different organizations within their own community. Secondly, we have a lot of parents contributing to bank accounts for their children in the future. What are the implications for those? The saving accounts that were set up in the 20 years ago for children, either children or grandchildren, and also small scholarships you get from community groups. Thank you.
Yep. A great question. At least for this particular provision that is in reference, it's students who receive grants or scholarships from non-federal sources covering their entire cost of attendance would be ineligible for Pell. So from that particular provision, wouldn't be applicable, wouldn't apply in that situation. But there could also be other aspects of the bill with respect to tax and the like that could be at play. But for this particular provision, it's not.
Thank you. Commissioner Agu. Oh, I think you're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Dr. Harness, thank you so much. This is really helpful. Two questions I have on workforce Pell, and just to get back, I used to work at the Department of Labor in DC. So one of my questions was, are programs that are on the state's ETPL list, eligible training provider list, are they automatically eligible for workforce Pell? Does that count as accreditation?
My sense is that the provider has to be accredited by the U.S. Department of Education.
Okay,
and so if they're not approved by the U.S. Department, I mean, they have to be an accreditor that is recognized, I should say, by the U.S. Department of Education. And then the specific workforce Pell program that would be in play here would have to be approved by the governor.
Got
in
it.
consultation with the state workforce board.
So just for our colleagues, if you look at a state's eligible training provider list, which generally for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which does a lot of workforce development, that makes you eligible. I think in most states, half to 60% of those are institutions of higher education, community colleges particularly. But there's another 40%, which are nonprofits, which some of them are union programs, like apprenticeships, which may not be eligible. So that is a thing for us to think about and consider. Because it sounds like it's up to the discretion of the governor. Thank you for that.
Yep.
The other question that I had is I'm thinking about in Maryland, one of our lighthouse industries as put forward by our Department of Commerce and our governor is life science. So when you talk about the loan limits on graduate
Yes.
education,
Yep.
I immediately think about physicians. Partially, I'm the son of one, I'm married to one. But when I just do the math in my head of roughly, it sounded like you said roughly $200,000 in terms of the cap. Most of the doctors that I know who are borrowing wholly are coming out with far more debt than that. So the question I think about is, okay, then where are they going to make up that gap? Do we see purely the private market making that up? Just the private providers, but who's going to fill that gap? I think because that's potentially a constraint on one of our lighthouse industries here in the state of Maryland.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for the question. Great question, and that is on the minds of a lot of people right now, because the typical, at least at a public institution, the typical physician comes out with 200,000, 250,000 or more, or if they're at a private institution, it can be 300 and above, and that is a real concern. And as of right now, if they would max out with the new law, if they would max out at that with the limits, it would look like they would have to go into the private student loan market. Yep.
And I
And
just want,
there may be efforts in the months and years ahead to try to get states to be involved in student lending. Some states do student lending, but there may be an effort to revisit the state role in student lending in order to cover some of the gaps here. But that's, again, mostly speculation on my part, but some states have gotten involved in student lending.
The only thing I'll add there, first of all, thank you for that, is that generally the states that I've seen have thought about that, you have to make some initial appropriation to get basically to start that flywheel. So it's not free. It's not something that I get to go on the private debt market. I have to put in something to get it going to start that process. So it's less for you to answer. It's more just a thing for us to think about and consider. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
and I just wanted to add to Vice Chair Agu's first question again to voice over some of the work that we're doing here at MHEC. The team met last week, and by the team I mean Executive Director Dorsett met with our colleagues at the Governor's Workforce Development Board, their Executive Director, Rachel Stevens Parker, to start the conversations around what the process will look like to get the governor to approve some of the workforce Pell related programs. So the bill was signed on July 4th, and immediately afterwards, the team have started considering what this means for us from a policy and process standpoint. So more to come on that end.
Yep.
Dr. Harnish, can I ask one follow-up question? I apologize because I know that she's one. Dr. Deuce is right after me. My question, I think I know the answer. The overall appropriation amount for Pell did not go up, I imagine, correct?
They included $10 billion in funding for the Pell Grant to basically get us through, looks like, the next 2 years in order to cover the Pell Grant shortfall. Over the long term, we are continuing to look at a Pell Grant shortfall. I have not seen any new CBO analysis when it factors in the changes to this law, but over the long term, yes, based on the FAFSA changes last year, of course, with the new workforce Pell, yes, we're looking at a long-term Pell Grant shortfall that's either going to require new investment from Congress or eligibility restrictions or reduction in the maximum Pell award. Historically, Congress has not reduced the maximum Pell Grant award, but they have done eligibility restrictions.
So the only reason I bring this up is because more types of credentials will be eligible. Effectively, it's the same size pie if we're generous, but with far more people who can draw from it. So that is so candidly, what I want to avoid is an artificial competition between our higher education system and our workforce system, because we need both to get to where we want to go. But in some ways, this starts to force it because, again, the pie is the same size. But there are more folks considering. So that's something that less for you to solve, but more for us to consider, particularly with our labor colleagues and in concert with the governor's office. So I have to say that thank you so much again. And Dr. Dukes, now I will be quiet.
No, just to add on it, that's a great point, and we're going to continue to advocate at SHIO for federal investments in Pell because it's the foundation of federal student aid. It now includes both workforce and traditional higher education programs. So it's a great point. And I would just add to my previous point, the new workforce Pell, it includes accredited providers, but is those providers in the public, private, not-for-profit, and for-profit college sectors. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of new programs coming in from the various different segments of higher education. I just have a few more points, and then happy to answer.
Commissioner Dukes has a question.
And thank you. My question is probably more operational, so I'm not sure if it will be for you or for Mr. Dorsett, but what are the requirements then that will be put on the offices, financial aid offices, relative to documentation? And how might this impact what we know are the annual audit processes to ensure that federal funds are distributed in line with the eligibility requirements? And will financial aid offices have the opportunity to extract judgment in terms of what they will do or cannot do for a student?
I think that'll be more discussion as we go into it, looking at especially with the governor of each state having some say in what students are eligible and how it proceeds. So that's something that we'll definitely keep in mind. I'm writing that down already, and we will provide more feedback in the future.
So one last question, and this might be a philosophical one, which does not have to be answered today, but does that potentially mean that we could certainly have what can be perceived as unequal systems if governors are making individual decisions? So philosophical in nature, does not need to be answered today, but I think in Maryland, we certainly need to think about that and think about it realistically. What happens at a four-year institution can be very different than what happens at a community college, which can be very different from a nonprofit provider, for-profit provider, and the like. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to ask the questions.
Dr. Harnish, before we move on to your next state of comments, I really want to emphasize that if it is true that if you get a full ride, you're not eligible for Pell, that is huge for Mr. Dorsett's operation and the decentralization, which we just coincidentally were doing this year in Maryland. And I know you reached out to your legislative colleagues, and your understanding is it relates to athletic scholarships, but is there any legislative history on this? I mean, we gotta wrap our mind around this. That's a very big deal for us here in Maryland.
Yeah, the legislative history that I know about this in particular was about as it relates to Division I athletic scholarships, and that they were getting Pell in addition to having their full cost of attendance covered. And one senator thought that was unnecessary and put forth that that provision, and that was ultimately agreed to by the committee, and later it was voted on from the full Senate.
So the discussion on the floor was about athletic scholarships, but I'm not sure the word athletic made it into the law.
Right. And so we'll have to, I guess I should say that's the intent, but as these things go through negotiated rulemaking, and as they're implemented, it can be, it can go different ways as people read it in different ways. So yeah, I look forward to working, with the U.S. Department of Education, trying to learn more about this and how it's going to be implemented, and share that information, as well as receiving your concerns, and well as how you all are reading it, and providing that information to them. Because right now, in talking with the SHEOs, not just in Maryland but elsewhere, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of different takes on how this will be implemented, and I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that the department knows that that there are a lot of concerns out there about this particular provision.
Thank you. Mr. Dorsett, and then Deputy Secretary Kiros Lavanis.
I put the law language, the current law language, in the in-call messages, just identifying that it it does indicate non-federal sources, including state institution of higher education, private sources, all to the cost of attendance. So that's going to be key for us, especially since that goes in effect July 1st, 2026. If it stays that way, Maryland would have to change within statute even how our program is set up, and we need to move very fast in changing that. So that's going to be really key.
Indeed. And we're going to have to work with our Assistant Attorney General on new regulations. I mean, this is a big sea change. Deputy Secretary?
I couldn't agree more, especially with what both you and Executive Dorset are saying. And I guess I also want to narrate the predicament that this puts SHIO agencies in, giving the timeline for implementation. A year is just frankly insufficient, especially when there's so many questions that are at play. And like Dr. Harnish keeps reminding us, we still have to go through negotiated rulemaking. So there is a lot that might become clear in the coming months, or it might just stay the same, but we have to be as an agency. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with these conversations, is not only keep the commission informed, but make sure that we as staff are informed, because we also don't want to act in isolation, knowing that this is federal policy that is impacting 49 other states plus districts and territories. So I also want to elevate the fact that Al and others are in conversations with national, not just SHIO, but national organizations related to financial aid. So NASFA, NASGAP, and we've been getting some really good guidance from there as well. But I don't want to say that we're in a wait and see predicament, because you can't wait to see what's going to happen. You have to prepare for various scenarios, but it is also unclear just exactly what it is that we're being charged to implement, just again, because we have to go through negotiated rulemaking. So it's not the best place to be in, given all of the changes that we're trying to enact here in Maryland.
And I would add, I completely agree. We shouldn't act in isolation from other states. And even within our own state, we have to come together. We need to be very tightly aligned with our institutions of higher education, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, all of them, because this is a big change. And as I mentioned, this happens to be the year when we're trying to decentralize this. You know, we need to talk quickly. Commissioner Otreg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So coming from a student's perspective and kind of seeing how this would all affect how students will like work around this and kind of see it. I know you mentioned that you will be working with the Department of Education, kind of getting information, seeing how legislators are working with the Department of Education. A lot of students do kind of understand that the current administration is making serious cuts to the Department of Education. So how is that like information going to be properly and effectively communicated if the students are seeing that there's cuts? That's my first question. And then my second question is, I know within the actual like legislature and the actual documentation of it all, it mentions like getting state grants. So I know some students, sometimes it will, like the federal Pell Grant may exceed once it's applied in conjunction to their state grants, but those students like heavily rely on that. So how do like us as commissioners and the state as a whole kind of ensure that students shouldn't be afraid to apply or to like submit FAFSA for fear of, you know, getting that exceeded Pell Grant amount and then it cancels out, that sort of thing?
Excellent point.
Great question. I'll take the first one on cuts to the Department of Education. So you're right. There has been for the FY26 budget, which is a separate process that that is ongoing right now. The Trump administration has actually called for deep cuts to education and education programs. And at SHIO, we are working to push back against those cuts because we know those programs, be it the Pell Grant program or other federal student aid programs, are absolutely essential for students, and not only student access to higher education, but also completion and helping them throughout their college journey. So we're going to continue to get information as quickly as we can. We're going to continue to work with Congress and try to advocate the centrality of these programs to students. And and continue to receive feedback from the higher education community. So yes, great point on the cuts that have been proposed by the Trump administration and now are being considered by Congress. But I would also just add that there's a lot of game left to be played on that, and that's now in the hands of Congress to make those decisions on how much money ultimately gets appropriated. And just continue to encourage folks to reach out to their delegation and let them know about the importance of these programs for students. As far as concerns about FAFSA and not filling out the FAFSA for fear of this, I can totally understand how it could be interpreted different ways. That hey, you know, why should I fill out the FAFSA, or if I'm getting a full ride, or in some cases they might only get their tuition covered. This pertains to full cost of attendance, so both your tuition expenses as well as those non-tuition expenses, and it's framed at least in the way of full ride athletic scholarships. But we'll have to see, as we've talked about, how it gets interpreted, and just making sure that students understand what this provision applies to and what it doesn't. But we would always encourage students always to fill out the FAFSA. That's the gateway to their federal student aid and the benefits that they need, and the resources that they need to get into college and graduate.
And I would just add to that, Commissioner Otre, and you likely know this already, but in Maryland, filling out the FAFSA is the gateway to Maryland state aid. You can't get aid from MHEC unless you fill out the FAFSA. That there's a bridge between the two agencies. The federal government sends Maryland students who have put in Maryland college, sends that information to MHEC, and that's how they know who's eligible. So very, very real concerns about how this is all going to play out. But I think the message to your fellow students is please continue to fill out the FAFSA, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on Maryland aid and federal aid. Thank you. Commissioner Polonio.
Sorry, my fingers don't move as fast as my brain. This may be a question or maybe something for the future, but there's a lot of problems we have in some schools in terms of ghost students. Students who fill out all the forms, register, start the class, and then poof, disappear. This is both a Maryland but a national issue. What you may not have an answer right now, but if this is something that needs to be taken into account, because it's getting worse. It's organized, it's almost falls under organized crime, the number of students that disappear after they cash the checks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just add on that is a very good point. And that is a real concern right now. And in talking with the administration, I know they put out new safeguards that they've put in place. I can find the press release and send that to your team afterwards. But they've put new safeguards in place to try to crack down on the ghost students and those that are misusing the federal financial aid system. So, but we've seen in California and other states that the ghost student problem is a real concern.
All right. Dr. Harnish, any other comments?
Yeah, I would just add just two more areas quickly to focus on. One is on accountability for undergrad, and this is going to be at the programmatic level. So not at the institutional level, but rather at the programmatic level. So it's going to ban new student loans from undergraduate programs where the majority of completers earn less than the median high school graduate in the same state. So when they talk about high school graduates, they're talking those between the ages of 25 and 34 in the state. And then with the bachelor's degrees, with the degree recipients, it's going to be calculated 4 years after graduation. So that's a new marker that they've put in place on the value of a college degree and how it compares to a high school diploma. So that is, again, completers only and at the programmatic level. And if they will lose eligibility if they don't meet the standards. 2 years in a 3-year period, and then they're banned for at least 2 years. So that is at the undergraduate level. For the graduate level programs, it's going to ban new federal student loans for graduate programs where the majority of completers earn less than a bachelor's degree recipient in the same field in the same state. So those are the two metrics right now that are going to be in place starting in 2026 on accountability for individual programs and the value they provide to graduates. Certificate programs are not included in this particular provision. So happy to answer any questions on that. That's going to be, of course, a big task for the Department of Education. I know that they've significantly cut down on the number of staff that they have at the department, but that is going to take a lot of calculations as you go through all the individual programs in higher education. So that is a new accountability measure. And then lastly, there's provisions in tax that I'm happy to send along to you all related to charitable contributions and endowment taxes for very wealthy private institutions. But one last provision I do want to include that's actually stepping outside of the higher education parts. It were just the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. And of course, we have many students of ours are on Medicaid. Many of our students are on SNAP. So they could potentially be affected by cuts to these programs. There's going to be new work requirements in there. So there are going to be first order effects on this. I would also say that there could be also second order effects as far as it relates to rural hospitals that are affiliated with university systems. And then a big one too that I don't think is getting covered nearly enough in the press is the strain that these Medicaid and SNAP cuts are going to be putting on state budgets. So 30% of state budgets are devoted to Medicaid. And if the administration goes through and makes deep cuts to Medicaid, state lawmakers are going to have to make very difficult choices. This is going to start in 2028 and it's going to ramp up from there. But they're going to have to make very difficult choices about Medicaid, who's on Medicaid, what benefits they provide, as well as they could take, and this is what we've seen historically, they take money from higher education and they put it into the Medicaid fund. Higher education in the old days used to have a larger share of the state budget pie than Medicaid. That is now changed. So, and there's actually research done on the relationship between state obligations to Medicaid and disinvestment in higher education. So that would be a very major second order effect, but I would actually argue that it could be much more important than some of the other provisions included in this legislation.
Thank you. Commissioner Agu.
Oh, Dr. Harsh, I want to restate the accountability just to make sure that I understand it.
Yep.
So I'll make this up. So they're going to look at if a philosophy major earns less than what the average philosophy major or philosophy worker earned in the state, they, over a period of years, they would get sanctioned and then potentially banned for a number of years from getting student loans. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yep. So if it's at the undergraduate level, it's going to be related to the high school
Median.
The median high school graduate in the same
Got
state.
it. Relates to the high school graduate, and then for graduate, it will be, do you out earn the average bachelor's degree recipient in your field? Thank you.
Yep.
But not with different fields, within your own field.
Own field, yes, within your, okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
That's clear to me. Thank you. The second, less a question, but it's more a thing for ourselves, and it comes from what you said about the Department of Education is not going to have the people to make these calculations. I mean, let's be candid. This is about restricting the amount of institutions who are eligible to draw on student loans. So candidly, we may have institutions who actually meet the bar, but the Department of Education may make more blanket judgments than they should. So the reason I bring this up is the work that, and I don't see Dr. Schmertz here, but I'm sure she's somewhere. The work that Dr. Schmertz is doing in terms of data, in terms of us proving the value of credentials in our state is going to be really important, because I foresee a time when The Department of Education says X institution isn't meeting the bar, therefore we're going to sanction them. And we're going to have to say, because hopefully we'll have the data to do so, say, no, no, no. Here is what we can show for what's happening to graduates in these programs and these institutions. This is just me projecting out because candidly, I don't think this is about what it's about. I think it's candidly about trying to restrict the amount of institutions who can draw on that. And you frankly may see more shotgun judgments around that in the future. So that's why the data work that Dr. Schwartz is doing on outcomes is so important, because I think we're going to have to defend institutions actually doing good work from, frankly, some folks on the federal level who simply want to take funds without necessarily looking at the data. So that's why I just want to state that out loud. So I think that's so important.
That's a great point, and just a related question about how this is going to be administered. So the U.S. Department of Education will be the one making the initial finding, and then the burden, sort of, to put it in lawyerese, the burden of proof shifts to the institution to justify itself or defend itself or say why the calculations are wrong. Is that correct?
Yep, the U.S. Department of Education will be calculating these numbers. And the law does have in there some of the specifics on that, but and some of this might be hashed out at negotiated rulemaking, but that's the U.S. Department of Education will be making these calculations.
And they're going to be using like federal wage data. Like, how are they? I mean, there are a lot of questions. I guess we don't have to delve into it right now, but I do think it's going to be I agree it's going to be a hard bill to administer with a greatly reduced staff at the federal agency.
Yep.
All right. Dr. Cornish, any other points?
Nope. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have if they think of something afterwards. But yeah, this was just, there are of course other things going on in the federal space, but I did want to use this opportunity just to focus on the new legislation that was signed on July 4th. Great.
Dr. Rai?
Well, I just want to thank Tom. I know he's on vacation, well-earned vacation, and he still came out when we requested him to speak. It was important for Commission and our audience to hear these updates. We were in a SHIO meeting in DC just last week, and Tom had invited the Secretary of Education, and she did come. And, we have an opportunity to give some of our suggestions, and Tom is working on that, and I'm sure he got plenty today. So some of that will definitely get to the decision makers, at least from our perspective. Again, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Tom. It was an extremely helpful presentation, and I did not know you were on vacation. Thank you for coming in from vacation and putting a jacket on and presenting to us. We really appreciate it. Enjoy your vacation, and we'll be back in touch with you after you return.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I did want to just take a little bit of a pause in the action on the agenda to welcome our other new commissioner who is already part of our lively conversation, Commissioner Narciso Polonio. Welcome and good morning. You join us with a great bit of experience in higher education, and I just wanted to welcome you. Thank you for being here and give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to ask questions. I have to tell you that was an excellent presentation on a very complex issue that we're probably going to be dealing with for the next 10 years. So this definitely won't get resolved. Yes, I do have an extensive background in higher education, and the wonderful thing I have to tell you, way back in the 90s, I worked for the state of New Jersey. And one of my positions, responsibility, was working with the higher ed commission that existed then. So I want to thank you because this brings me full circle to very early in my career and now, and I hope I can make some important contribution. But let me also thank the staff. They have been very wonderful in terms of accommodating schedules and keeping us posted, particularly during this very busy time. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you really want to know more about me, God help us. It's too much of a beautiful day for me to go on.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda. Our next item is an update on the Maryland State Plan for Higher Education. So I will turn it over to our esteemed Vice Chair and Deputy Secretary.
Great. And Madam Deputy Secretary, are you going to share slides? Okay. And here we are. And so, again, we're giving regular updates on the Maryland State Plan. One, because this is a mandate, particularly of the board by law in statute in the state. And really, again, why does this matter? The Maryland State Plan really is our guiding North Star for our entire system for what we're looking to achieve over the next 4 years. It informs the legislative agenda, it informs institutional missions, it informs accountability, it informs our research agenda, it informs policy innovation. And as I like to say, whenever I talk about plans or strategy, they're important because, like Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. And I think this is very much true in higher education. And per the conversation that we just had, we cannot proceed into the next 4 years or even decade, as our new commissioner just said, without a plan. Because we had issues before, we have more issues now. And therefore, it means that it's even more important for us to have a clear plan that we all can lock arms in as we proceed in this very uncertain time. If you want to go to the next slide. Again, what's our mandate per the statute for this plan? One, we have to look at the present and future needs of post-secondary education and research. All the words of that really matter. We'll talk a little bit about research at the end of my remarks. What are the present and future capabilities of all of our different institutions and segments? And then lastly, and most importantly, what are our long-range and short-range objectives and priorities? Basically, what do we need? What do we have? And what do we need to be doing as we look into the near future and the medium and long-term future? If we go to the next slide. We have engaged in a roadshow with a number of stakeholders. One of the things that we have said is we don't want this to be written in a black box. We want this to be a plan that is informed by our stakeholders so we get all the good ideas, that we actually bring them into our conversations, that they're advocates for this work, and so that we frankly push the system and push ourselves. And so already we have met with, you already heard about our steering committee. Our steering committee had over 30, and again, came around over 30 groups, institutions, business represented by folks like the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, philanthropy like the Greater Washington Community Foundation, and a number of other folks who are meeting now monthly to dive deeply into topics like completion, like equity, like research, so on and so forth. We've already met with in one-on-one meetings, the ABLE Foundation, the Maryland Business Roundtable for Higher Education. We literally met yesterday with Chancellor Perman and Chair Gooden from USM. And in the next month, and again, I want to really thank the staff. I want to thank Alex, I want to thank our Deputy Secretary, I want to thank Dr. Dow. We are meeting literally in the next month with the Greater Washington partnership. We're going to Trade Point Atlantic very shortly to meet with their businesses. We'll be meeting with MICUA. We'll be meeting with the Greater Baltimore Committee. We'll be meeting with MAC, and that likely is not the end of that list. But the goal is, again, get the best ideas, recruit partners, and really create a coalition to make sure that we can actually not just write a plan, but deliver it over the next 4 years and really beyond. Next slide, unless that was the last one. We have a lot of charges. We actually showed this to the steering committee on Friday. But the charge of the steering committee, and again, the goal of the steering committee is, again, to have a group of stakeholders across sectors, across segments that are going to help us write this plan. Before, I'll read through the charge, and then I'll say one thing that's not on here, but that I said on Friday. We want to co-create, and we'll use this word a lot, co-create the strategic direction for this plan. We want to get the critical insights and data. We want to really interrogate our current systems and data and assumptions. We want to really center on equity, innovation, and really the impact. Again, the engagement, and we really want to make sure that we advise on all the context and considerations. Again, what we just seen from DC, this is not a reality we even thought about 6 months ago. And therefore, how do we make sure that we think about that? One thing that I said on Friday, which is not on this slide, but it's important to say, there are times when you create groups like this and what you end up with is the lowest common denominator product. Let's just write a product that everyone can not be mad about and move on. That's not our goal here. I've said this a lot. We are not creating a lowest common denominator plan. We are creating a plan that's going to be ambitious, that's going to push us. If we write a plan and it doesn't make us slightly uncomfortable because it's going to require us to do new things because we need to do them, we've probably not been ambitious enough. And in this time, I don't think we can afford not to be. Again, with just these changes that we just heard about, and the secretary, myself and Dr. Dow were with USM yesterday, and we had a very blunt conversation about we are going to have to rethink the entire research and development enterprise in the United States of America in higher education with the changes that we've seen federally. And for Maryland, that matters because that's a cornerstone of our economy. We're going to have to rethink lock, stock, and barrel what that looks like, and we don't get there by just creating a lowest common denominator product. And I think there are many other issues from completion to equity that are like that. And when that was said, we had a lot of nods around the virtual table. But again, that's now when the changes actually come, it's going to be a little harder, but we are going to have to persist and proceed. Do we, Madam Secretary, do we have one more slide? Yes, we do. Great. Which is basically we have these leaders, and really you'll see all the types of stakeholders who are represented here. I won't spend much time here. Let's go to the next slide. See if we have it. We're going to, again, recalibrate these goals. I won't spend much time here, but one thing I'll say on the bottom, we're going to be focusing on completion. We're going to be focusing on making sure that we have credentials of value. These are our goals. And then lastly, we're really going to be looking at the creating goals around the public impact and innovation of our institutions, particularly on economic development. Along the bottom, you see Leave No Marylander Behind. We thought long and hard about this, but candidly, equity is not a goal. It is a thing that we should just be doing. And therefore, when we look across all these goals, we're going to be asking, okay, is every Marylander included and represented in how we are pursuing and holding ourselves accountable to these goals? So I want to say that out loud. So the reason you don't see an equity goal is because it is not a goal. It's a thing that we do. It should be like the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. It is just what we do. And I know that comes directly from the governor, as well as I know is echoed by every single person who is on this call. Next slide. Here are our steering committee meetings. By the way, any commissioners who want to attend, we will let you know. We'll send you the invite. Feel free to. These will all be virtual, so feel free to just pop in. But what you see is, I believe we're meeting first Friday or second Friday of most months. We had our first kind of kickoff meeting, and each of these other meetings are going to be about deep dives into topics. So our next meeting is going to be about equitable access. Next meeting after that will be about student success and completion. The third meeting will be about workforce alignment. Our November 6th meeting will focus on research and development, and then December is going to be where we're hopefully going to be wrapping this plan and hopefully beginning to socialize with other stakeholders. How do we get the implementation and the accountability right? So just to give you a sense of how we're going to use this time, and these are 2-hour meetings. We get very deep with this very large group. And we intend for these to be worth people's time. That was a promise I made when the secretary and I first kind of got on the call, but just to give you a sense of our timeline. And our goal is, hopefully around the Student Success Summit, we have a draft that we can begin to get our arms around, that we can begin to socialize with stakeholders, and particularly this commission, probably even beforehand. So we'll just look out for that, as we are going to look for your feedback as well. Next slide. Unless that was the last one.
Vice Chair.
So let me say one thing that maybe a couple of themes that have come up that I would say are interesting, but they're ones that I will say at the beginning I didn't expect to come up as much. We actually had every stakeholder on the steering committee, all 30 of them, name their top 3 priorities. Many of them are things that are already in this DAG and that you've heard. A couple that surprised us, not surprised, but weren't on there. One, artificial intelligence came up a lot. It came up particularly from faculty members, from deans. That's, I think, was one. Secondly, civic education came up more than once as something, particularly in these kind of politically polarized times, that folks are really, really focused on. Thirdly, less that it wasn't mentioned, but it came even deeper, and it really came to stark relief from our USM meeting: research and development. This is going to look really different. I think we all intellectually understand this, but it is very hard to wrap our minds around how different this is going to be. We have had, since after World War II, a federally driven basic research enterprise in the United States of America. And at the moment, we can't necessarily depend on that. What does that look like going forward. And so we are frankly kicking around, we may have additional meetings and convenings around that. One thing that we know we need to do is, and this is a charge that I'll say out loud, and particularly we need to give to the deputy secretary, but we need to asset map all of our R&D assets across the state to figure out, okay, here's what we have. How do we make this survive and build it into potentially a new mousetrap for going forward? So something that we talked about yesterday, and it's a charge that we particularly need to make. So I'm happy to kind of make it here. But just to give you a sense of where people's minds are, I'm going to be quiet now because I, as usual, said too much. Happy to take any questions, or if there are no questions, happy to give it back to the chair, but do want to make sure that people have a chance to ask questions or give comments if there are from my fellow commissioners. All right. With that, Madam Chair, happy to give it back to you. And I just want to thank again the staff, Deputy Secretary, Assistant Secretary Dow, the Secretary himself, Alex, and a number of folks who I'm sure I'm not even aware of, who have made this entire process easy and doable. I kind of just get to show up, and they're doing everything they can. So I cannot thank this amazing team at MHEC enough. And I always say this team of 70-ish does all this. So I always just like to say that out loud for our state legislative friends on the Appropriations Committee as they're thinking about budgets.
Thank you, Vice Chair Drago. I'm sorry, Deputy Secretary, do you want to say something? No. All right. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Jeff Newman, who oversees the Department of Finance and Administration. I believe he'll be introducing Mr. Dorsett to talk about OSFA.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Secretary. Yes, Al will be doing his meeting FAFSA completion and scholarship awarding updates, and then he has two sets of regulations which you considered in March to be moved forward, and now they're ready for adoption. So I'll hand it over to Al.
Thank you, Jeff. Let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen and hear me. Good morning, Madam Commissioner, Vice Commissioner, and Commissioners, as well as Secretary Rye. Thank you for giving me time to share with you an update on the Howard P. Rawlings program for the 25-26 award year. So just quick, always start at the kind of reiterate with the allocation for the 26 award year and funding. We received $138,664,752 in funding for fiscal 26, a 21% increase over the $114,240,000 allocated in fiscal year 25. Although we did receive additional funds in fiscal 25, I'm going off of what was approved by the General Assembly initially. The maximum award for the fiscal 26 is $18,000 to give more students, potentially to award more students in funding. And we've already started our awarding process for the current year. I'll make sure that's good. Okay. So awarding for the current year, where we're currently at. This is the total amount of students we've awarded, as well as what is currently in the system. So ultimately, we've awarded 7,000, and well, we've ultimately awarded 10,485 students for a total of $140,431,750. Currently, we have 7,093 students who have accepted their award for a total of $433,400. 504 students have an award and have not accepted yet. That amount is higher because we recently awarded this past week. So those students have, I believe, up to 6 weeks to accept their award, getting notifications when we initially award, and following up with 3 notifications, usually running to remind them that they still need to accept their award before their award is canceled within the system automatically for non-acceptance. At the same point in time, we do have students that have missed those notifications, and they do call us. And if they are saying that they are going to attend a Maryland institution, we also reestablish their award so they can go and accept. There are 2,888 students for a total of $37,104,450 who have had their awards canceled or declined. Some awards have canceled due to a student not accepting, of course. Other cases, a student has not met the credit completion requirements, or a school has canceled because a student is identified as not meeting satisfactory academic progress. Those are just kind of 3 examples in which award can be canceled. And then, of course, some students are declining their award based off us just receiving the FAFSA and awarding students. If it is a Maryland resident, and they list a Maryland institution on their FAFSA and eligible for the Guaranteed Access Grant, we do offer them that award based off their eligibility. But if a student is determining or deciding to attend somewhere else out of the state, those are most times where a student will decline their award. And again, that leads us to—
Sorry, can I jump in real quick? The canceled and decline rate seems very high for the initial Guaranteed Access Grant. Is that pretty typical?
It has been recently with the expansion of the eligibility for it. So there are more students eligible for the grant, which is why you have a higher cancellation of students that are either not eligible or, again, they are declining the grant. And, if the commission would like a breakdown of each different cancellation and decline category, we can provide that as well.
I'm not trying to create extra work for you. I'm just curious. It looks like you've almost as many students this is graduating high school seniors traditionally, but now it's been expanded to up to age 26, right?
Correct.
So almost as many students canceled or declined as got the award, as compared to the renewals where, many more are on track for the 18,000 and accepted it. I'm just curious, is it, I know you gave different reasons, but what would you say like the top 2 or 3 drivers are of the GA initials who have been canceled or declined?
I would say really the cancellations are higher, and it's more students just not accepting the award.
So they have, somebody in their life made them apply for this award, and then they decided not to go to college or not to go to college in Maryland.
Correct. So it's not even someone made them apply for this award. So based off how the Guaranteed Access Grant is formulated right now, the application process, a student just has to do the FAFSA. Of course, a student doing the MHEC 1 app is looking, in the MISFA section, is looking to go to school as an undocumented student in Maryland. But for the other students that just do a FAFSA, the student just has to be a Maryland resident, put a Maryland school on the FAFSA. As long as that student meets the eligibility requirements, then that student is going to be awarded and offered the award. So that individual that's choosing not to go to school in Maryland or just does not accept the award, that gets canceled after a 6-week period.
Okay. And do we think it's some students who aren't knowing where to check on the MDCAP's website? Is there some of that happening?
So we give specific instructions on how students log into or create an MDCAPS account, log into MDCAPS, and accept their award. In many cases, we get students that call us back because they indicated that they didn't receive the email communications. So in those cases, we establish the award and assist the student with going in and accepting the award. So that's what we would need to see if we could identify more details on why students aren't accepting them.
Okay, and again, you're a busy man and you have a busy department. I'm not trying to create work. It seems like this is larger in years than in years past, a larger rate of declines and cancellations.
We can do a comparison. So it's no problem to come back and do a comparison.
Okay, that would be helpful then. And then
Sure.
how does it compare to your projections of where you'd be at this time?
So that's what we're going to go into next.
Okay. Great. I think before we do that, I think Commissioner O'Trey has a question.
More so just kind of to add on to that statement of why there's a little more of an equal distribution of people accepting as well as like declining or canceling the awards. From a student side of thing, I honestly feel that it's sometimes like not a lack of communication, but sometimes students just don't check their emails on time, or they don't really like making physical calls to the office to get more information. Sometimes students just are kind of wary about that sort of thing, so that can also contribute to that.
Good point. All right, Mr. Dorset, please continue.
Sure. So, still remaining, $33,337,453 is still remaining. The 136, because we do have the campus-based EA grant, which takes $2 million away from the full appropriation. And then out of that, the $103 million that has been awarded gives us that $33 million. Currently, we have 1,021 renewals, still missing their 25 spring credits, which is a large drop from the last time reported, which we were about 5,000 students. We have 556 initials that were selected for verification. 21 have completed their verification and are awarded. The rest have not. We are extending the verification deadline, and we'll be notifying those individuals that we've extended the verification deadline for them to submit all their documents. Just to reiterate, students that were selected for verification were students that were not selected for federal verification, and only students that had an IRS reject code, meaning that they could not import their ISER or their IRS tax documents in there. So a portion of those students were selected for verification to confirm that all information was correct on the FAFSA. All students remaining on the wait list, these are individuals not ready to award. So anytime an individual is identified as eligible for the Guaranteed Access Grant, they automatically go on the wait list. As the individual becomes ready to award, that individual is awarded and moves off of the wait list. So when we say all students remaining on the wait list, these are all eligible students that have identified for the Guaranteed Access Grant at this time. There are cases where we have not received the student's FAFSA, so that may change because the federal government may provide us with that FAFSA, or we may have to request that student's FAFSA as the student identifies themselves. But right now we're going off of the 1,311 students estimated for $16 million. So based off that, we look at the potential to award the EA grant, and we would look to do that in August. So we'll continue to still award on a weekly basis the Guaranteed Access Grant. We estimate there will be about $15 million available to award EA renewals. That's where we start awarding those in August. We'll continue to complete verification for initial students that submit documents. That's the $16 million because they are included in the wait list, even though they've been selected for verification. So we'll have that $16 million still set aside to continue to award those, as well as continue to review any students that submit appeals to us.
That is great news. Thank you for that report. How many EA, if every student eligible for an EA, an education assistance grant renewal, every sophomore and above were to get that, I guess you don't have any sophomores because you didn't award any initials last year, right? So juniors and seniors. How many juniors and seniors, what would the total amount be to cover every eligible junior and senior?
I don't have that information offhand right now, but I can provide that to the commission.
That would be great. And I assume you're doing it in order of financial need. The neediest students would go first. I'm going to pause my questions and turn it over to Commissioner Burnham, who has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. I appreciate that great report. a lot of detail, and quite frankly, I have to admit, I get lost with a lot of it. I'm just not as knowledgeable about the details that are so important. Let me ask this simple question. Is there anything more that we could be doing as a commission to get more money to students faster?
I think as a commission, we should always advocate for the need for additional funds to get to students, as well as, you know, we're looking at our regulations to make sure that we're processing correctly. I think at this point in time, the commission, the staff, needs to look at what our processes is, especially with going into decentralization, and then look at how the federal guidelines are going to change stuff, and then really go in and present to the commission and use their expertise and their advice on if we're going in the right direction. But that decentralization definitely is going to move, which starts really next year. So October 1st, the FAFSA is required to become available. We're looking at providing a ranking list for the institutions by November 15th, as well as their allocations for them to see how much money is available for them to award. And they'll be able to start moving out and awarding students as soon as possible. So it's really pushed that at this point in time, putting that together so that institutions understand, having the guidelines for those institutions so that they can move forward and award those students. They have more information than us. They know what students completed the 24 to 30 credits prior to us. They know what students are coming back. They know what students are meeting SAP and what students are not meeting SAP. So because they have such that essential information at the tip of their hands, that will make it where more students can know what aid they're getting, at least on state aid purposes, faster.
All right, sounds like that's remain committed to the course that we're on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Rai?
Well, thank you, Chair Marks, and thank you, Mr. Dorset. Great presentation. I want to really applaud our Office of Student Financial Aid team, my colleagues there. They've been working diligently. They have 26 different programs to manage. And some requires, a lot more attention. Regulations are also sometimes very complex. And they use MDCAP system that was, built 20 years ago, a legacy system that has pretty serious limitations. We're working on onboarding a new system in the next 14 to 18 months. That will be very, very good. And I want to end with this. In spite of pretty significant budget challenges that our state has, Governor has appropriated 21% additional funds for guaranteed access scholarships that goes to the lowest income students. And that amounts to almost $24 million. In this environment, we are very, very appreciative of Governor's effort. So again, I'll thank you very much for all your presentation and all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary.
I want to echo that. For years, ever since I met Mr. Dorset and came to know his work, I've called him the hardest working man in state government, and I stand by that. I do have just one more question, sir, if you don't mind projecting the slide that showed the students who still, their course credits from spring 25 hadn't been received yet. I just want to make sure I understand what needs to happen there. Does that mean that the colleges and universities haven't shared with MHEC whether the students are eligible for the GA?
Give me 1 minute. Let me get back to that.
That's the next slide, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 1,021 renewals missing the spring 25 credits. Can you talk a little more about that, please?
Yeah, so we have a report and we identify students that have received a GA award for 2 or more years. We filter out individuals that have received the award for 4 years or 5 years just because they're at the maximum. So that kind of leaves room there because you may have a 4th year that is actually going to attend the 5th year. But kind of to get a actual or more specific amount of numbers. Then we look at individuals any individual that completed 24 or more credits for the fall, we filter out because they've met the requirements, even if the credits haven't been reported for the spring. So we look at individuals that have spring credits, fall credits that have been reported, but no spring credits. Now, with institutions, because a individual or the statute allows summer credits to be included to meet the requirements of 24 to 30 credits, some institutions wait. So some institutions have shared that they have 100 students that are taking courses for the summer. They're not going to report those individuals until the summer session is over because they want those students to be eligible for the guaranteed access grant as long as they've met the requirements. One thing that we saw in the past is that for some reason the system was set up where institutions can only report credits once. We have been working with our current vendor to change that. That would allow institutions to award or report credits more than once. But again, the biggest piece with that is you don't want an institution to report less credits, the individual be identified as ineligible, and then the institution come back and say, oh, the student completed more credit. So that's where you kind of get that 1,021 renewals, which is really not bad when you look at how many institutions we actually have. If each of them have about maybe 100 or so students in that situation, you look at by the probably middle of August, those students will be reported. And then, of course, there are other groups of individuals who just did not attend, and maybe the institution has not reported that that individual did not attend yet.
Okay. I mean, just getting back to Commissioner Burnham's broader question about what we as a commission can do to expedite students getting funds faster. It sounds like you're going at it a lot of different ways, but as you know, it's getting to be crunch time. In a couple of weeks, students will be registering for classes. And as you know very well, the students often aren't allowed to register for classes if the funds aren't in their account. And so this $18,000 of the renewal of the GA is so important, as is the $3,000 for the EA renewals. That's real money to our students and can really make a difference as to whether they drop out or not. And so making sure that they are, that these are awarded as quickly as possible. There are real world implications to students showing up, being turned away, and then dropping out. So time is of the essence, and we as a commission fully support you. If there's anything we can do as a commission to expedite that, please do let us know.
I definitely will. And Secretary Rye has already taken a great step with communicating with the presidents of the universities, urging them to make sure that credits are reported. So that's why we saw such a huge turnaround from 5,000 even down to the 1,000.
Excellent. Commissioner Thompson and then Commissioner Otre.
Yes, thank you, Chair Motz. Mr. Dorsett, I have a question regarding the appeals. On your last slide of your presentation, you indicated that there were students who are appealing. Could you just in context let us know what percentage of those who apply have to appeal, or, it's not a significant number? I'm not sure. And what are some of the issues around that process? Thank you.
So I can provide you with the percentages at a later date,
Okay.
But it's not a high percentage compared to the number of eligible applicants,
Okay.
but definitely can provide you with a percentage. The appeals reasons could be completed FAFSA after the deadline date, which is the March 1st deadline date. Appeals can be students that did not complete 24 to 30 credits or 24 to 29 credits. Appeals could also be individuals that could not attend the prior year for different reasons. So there's different reasons that we have the appeals. There is a group of about 3 individuals. I think we've received around between 400 to 500 appeals, and I don't have the exact number, but that's about
Sure.
how many. So they've been working diligently to review appeals, communicate with the students and their families, and move forward with making sure that the students can get their aid.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Otre?
Yeah, so this is more of a statement in regarding actual like students reporting their like credits and how much they have. I know technically that's not how it would go about, but would you feel that that may streamline the process a little bit more if students also kind of attach their own transcripts that they have from, let's say, the fall and spring semester to see if what they're reporting matches up with what the school is reporting? I know that could maybe open up a Pandora's box, but could that also help make the process more streamlined?
We could definitely look into it. The biggest piece with that is more so manpower. If a student is reporting and we're waiting for the institution report, then you've got, the students actually submitting, and we're talking about thousands of students, where right now we don't have a system that would take that student to upload that document and read that document to put that in there. So you're looking at an aspect of every student that submits that, reviewing that, making sure, plugging it in for the student. It's been very big and a big push for us working with the institutions to them understand the need for them to report those credits as early as possible. But it's something that we definitely can look into, especially with this new system, and we look at how we can utilize that new system, and if it can read documents to read credits that students report it, and it goes directly into the system based off it being, the document that it is.
Al, can you briefly talk about in the decentralized environment, how this will be impacted?
So in a decentralized environment, the institutions will not need to report credits to MHEC. In the decentralized environment, institutions will need to keep a record of students' credits, but they'll need to determine or confirm that the student has met the required credits. What we will be doing in the decentralized environment is on that ranking report, provide the institutions with identifying not only the renewal students that are ranked, but those renewal students that the credits are required, and letting them know not only that the credits are required, but if credits have already been reported to us by another institution. So they'll have that information if the student is at the home institution that's giving them aid, and they'll have that information if the student transferred even from a community college to the four-year institution. So in order to get the aid, they're not required to report to us, but they still will provide us with the credits on a yearly basis. It just won't be as detrimental to the student if they're running late.
Yeah, it won't delay award for students in this process. Right?
Yeah.
So this will be helpful to students.
Last question from me, Mr. Dorsett. The students that you talk about on the wait list and not ready to award, the 1,311, and for those students, they've done everything they're supposed to do. It's just either MHEC is waiting from the FAFSA for the federal government, or MHEC is doing something else and soon will be awarding those students. Is that correct?
No, so that is a combination of students that have been selected for verification, students that have been identified as independent but are under the age of 24. So we may be waiting for documentation to support proof of independency, such as the individual being in foster care or awarded court. Those are individuals that are renewal students that we're still missing their credits. So that's a combination of those different types of students. They've already been identified or predetermined as eligible within the system, and we're just waiting for them to provide whatever documentation they're required to provide so that the system can say, hey, the student has submitted all requirements and they're ready to be awarded now.
So it's a wait list in that, like you said on your chart here, it's for some reason the award can't be made yet. But it's not a wait list in the sense that there's not enough money for them. There is enough money.
Correct. So the way that the current system is set up, when a when the first student comes in that's eligible for GA, they go on the wait list. So every student that's determined goes initially on the wait. And then as we award, students are moved off of the wait. So the wait list is not always about not enough funds being available. It's about not enough funds being available and the student meeting all eligibility requirements and all document requirements so that they're ready to be awarded. But we're nowhere at the point where we don't have enough funds so that students are still on the wait.
Okay, thank you very, very much. This is a great report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. That was just one of your updates on, I guess, FAFSA, and I guess we're now moving to scholarship awarding update, or was that part of that?
That was the scholarship part. The final part is the final adoption of regulations and regulatory amendments for COMAR 13B0803, which is the Charles W. Riley Firefighter and Ambulance Rescue Squad Member Scholarship, as well as COMAR 13B0823, which is the Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship. These were presented to the commission back in March. They've gone through their final adoption, where they've been approved for publication, or approved for publication and gone through the publication process. So now we're just doing a recommendation for the final adoption of both COMAR regulations. So as I read through it, you have the new regulations for the Charles W. Riley Firefighter Scholarship, Firefighter Ambulance Rescue Squad Member Scholarship, COMAR 13B0803. On March 26, 2025, the Commission approved for publication, 1, the repeal of current regulations for the scholarship program, and 2, new regulations replaced the current ones. The purpose of the new regulations was to implement the changes made to the Riley Scholarship administered by the Office of Student Financial Assistance during the 2024 legislative session, Chapter 223, HB 899, and Chapter 224, SB 691. The legislative changes expanded for the scholarship to increase recruitment and retention of career and volunteer firefighters emergency services. So the first recommendation is it is recommended that the Commission approve for final adoption, then close regulatory proposal for repeal of current regulations and replacement with new regulations for the Charles W. Riley Firefighter Ambulance and Rescue Squad Member Scholarship.
All right. I move for, consistent with what Mr. Dorsett's recommendation 1 is, I move adoption of these regulations. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? All right, the ayes have it. I just wanted to check in with our Assistant Attorney General, Ms. Ward. Was that done in a legally compliant way?
It was.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Dorsett, back to you, sir.
And then the second one is amendments to regulations to Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship, COMAR 13B0823. Again, on March 26, 2025, the Commission approved for publication the technical adjustment to the allocation method for Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship. The purpose of the amendment was to realign the process and timeline for initial funding notifications and to make language changes that clarify certain existing provisions. The proposed regulatory amendments were published in the Maryland Register on May 30th, 2025. The public comment period for the amendment ended on July 15th, 2025, and no public comments were received. It is recommended that the Commission approve the final adoption of the regulatory proposal for amendments to the regulations to the Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship.
I move approval for the final adoption of the Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship consistent with Mr. Dorsett's second recommendation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? All right, the ayes have it. And Ms. Ward, that was legally compliant?
It was.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Dorset, does that conclude your remarks?
Yes, thank you, Madam Secretary, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Secretary Ryan, and Commissioners. I appreciate you.
Fantastic work for you and your whole team. Please pass on our thanks to the entire Office of Student Financial Assistance. It is a hard job, particularly at this time of year, and the fact that all of these funds are going out and that we're going to have money left over for the EA is just huge for Maryland students. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I definitely will.
Okay, our final item on the agenda is from the Department of Academic Affairs, Dr. Dow.
I think it just turned 12 o'clock, so I will open with saying good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the template for the letter of intent. Per legislation, House Bill 1244, that I think many of you are familiar with from the 2024 session, per that legislation, there is a new process called a letter of intent for new graduate level programs. This letter of intent by law is supposed to serve two specific purposes. One, an early warning signal for potential duplication before a full program proposal comes to the agency. And two, an opportunity for the commission to provide guidance and feedback on potential collaborations between and among institutions. We have worked with the Program Review Process Advisory Council, the shorthand PRPAC, which comprises presidents, provosts, and other senior leadership at colleges and universities. We've had three very detailed meetings to walk through various draft versions of this template. At the most recent meeting on Monday, they approved this template, and we are prepared to present it to you all for approval and initial implementation. We are required by law to eventually draft regulations for this letter of intent process, but we would like to pilot it, before we put forward regulations. So what you'll see in the documentation that we have provided is a timeline for implementation. We would ask institutions to begin submitting letters of intent on October 1st. We have an expectation that internally MHEC staff would review those letters of intent, meet with the college, meet with other entities as needed, and provide written feedback to the institution within 4 weeks. So we would start this process on October 1st. We'd run it through that October timeline. Pending no major issues, we would continue to accept letters of intent on the 1st of every month. And again, we'll work with the Program Review Process Advisory Council for any needed changes to the template. We'll discuss any changes to the timeline and or process. And ultimately come to you all with proposed regulations that reflect a process that seems reasonable, timely, transparent, and meets the requirements by law. So what you have in your commission book is a summary memo and the draft template for this letter of intent. We have some background information, and again, that timeline that I've just provided you, and then the various prompts in the template. We ask questions about program details. Again, these are intended, these are we won't hold the institution to exactly what they present here, but it gives us a sense of the type of program that they're thinking about. We ask some prompts around reasonableness of program duplication. Are there similar programs? And if yes, do they think their program is going to be distinct, and how? We ask a few questions about external considerations like licensure, certification, and national or other accreditation requirements. And then finally, we ask some questions about resources and alignment with mission. Those questions are central to us thinking through and providing feedback about potential collaborations. So with that, I will read the recommendation. It is recommended that the Maryland Higher Education Commission approve the enclosed letter of intent template and authorize staff to implement the process as outlined beginning October 1st, 2025. Staff will continue to work with the PRPAC and other stakeholders to refine the process and return to the commission with recommended regulations following initial implementation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Dow, for the hard work in this space. It's so important, and there's so many implications for this important development. And just maybe a couple of quick questions. The first of which is, can institutions revise that proposal within a certain period of time?
Absolutely. We would welcome that, especially if we have concerns about potential duplication. This will, again, give us as agency staff an opportunity to provide that feedback way earlier on in the process of a new program proposal being developed. So we would likely expect changes between the letter of intent and a full proposal if there are concerns around duplication and if there's potential for collaboration.
Okay, thank you. And that's helpful. And if there are concerns about duplication, then can you help me understand what action that you and your team take that would foster communication and collaboration among institutions to attempt to diffuse that issue prior to it becoming, to the commission for full adjudication?
Absolutely. So this is where I do want to give us a bit of grace as we think through this for the first few months that we implement. If we do find that a proposed program is going to be potentially duplicative of existing programs, we are thinking that we would certainly reach out to the institution thinking about implementing that program, having some additional conversations. In the letter of intent, they will have to provide some initial thoughts around justification for either the duplication and or no, they don't think it's duplicative. They think they're going to make it distinct in these specific ways. So we first and foremost have a conversation with that institution, and then depending on the issues at hand, having follow-up conversations with institutions with existing programs. And so that's where I think it's going to be different depending on the nature of the program, the nature of the potential duplication, and coordinating those conversations with and among staff and both senior leadership. I think that's also an important distinction, both senior leadership on the campuses as well as department chairs or deans, and really kind of talking through all levels of academic program development. So okay. That's where I think it's going to be, it's hard for me to fully answer that question because I think in some ways it will depend on the nature of the program. The short answer, if I can give you the short answer now, is communicating with both the proposing institution and the institutions who may have existing programs that are similar to what another institution might want to implement.
Okay, that's helpful. Final question for you. Do you have the authority to test a pilot program prior to issuing regulations? Maybe it's a legal question for Ms. Ward, or are regulatory actions needed before the implementation of the intent letter?
No, you can pass your regulations whenever. It's probably a good idea to put your regulations out first, but it's not required. So I understand why Dr. Dow is, sort of putting this program out there first to see how it works and then wanting to draft regulations. So it's not illegal. It's probably a good idea, but it's fine.
Okay, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Chair Motz, you're on mute.
Thank you. Dr. Dukes, then Dr. Wormack, and then Judge Howe, please.
Just in order, I think Judge Howe was first. So
sorry, I can't see that on my screen. Judge Howe, yes, sorry. But thank you, Dr. Dukes. Looks like, yeah, there are numbers here. You're right. Judge Howe, then Dr. Dukes, then Dr. Wormack. My apologies. Thank you.
Just a very quick question, and it's probably covered in your document, but I don't have it in front of me right now, although I printed it. How do other institutions know when a new program, new course is suggested at that institution? Is it only that you look for duplication? How do the other institutions that may have a competing course know that there has been an application filed?
So our current process, in the absence of this letter of intent process, we get the program proposal. We review it to make sure it's complete, that it has all the required pieces of that proposal. And then we put that proposal out for circulation. We do that in two ways. It's a listserv, and we put it up on our website. That's only when we have the full proposal. This letter of intent process will not be circulated. So it will be, the onus falls on agency staff to coordinate with existing schools to navigate potential conversations.
Okay, that tells me what I needed to know. And I'm sure you have it in there, but as I said, I don't have it directly in front of me. Thank you so much for that response.
Thank you.
Dr. Dukes?
Yes, thank you. I have more of an observation than a question, and that is, given what we heard with regard to the changes in financial aid, particularly Pell Grant, and the numbers of institutions that may be coming forward to identify programs that meet a workforce need, either one that is currently existing or emerging, we should be thinking about what the deluge might be with regard to requests for programs that could be defined as duplicative, but also have to be defined as, do we have enough programs in place with enough seats in place to meet the growing demand for workforce in a number of areas across the state, especially given the commitment of the governor, workforce boards, et cetera, et cetera. So it is, again, just an observation that we really should be ready for that and prepared to get more than what we have in the past.
Very good point. Thank you. Dr. Wormack and then Dr. Thompson.
Sure, thank you, Chair Mott. Just had a quick question. This is not required. Our pilot is not required until we actually adopt the regulation, right? So institutions don't have to do this letter of intent at this point in time, correct? I just want to make sure.
That is a good question. I don't know if I'm fully prepared to answer. What I will say is that this part of the law took effect, and I do not want to misspeak. It took effect recently. I want to say it's beginning July 1st, 2025.
Yes.
So
Okay.
institutions are supposed to be submitting a letter of intent by law because we're now past July 1st.
Okay. So they have to comply with it, right? But the process will be delineated later for them to better understand what the process is. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Thompson?
Thank you, Chair Motz. Dr. Dow, I just have a general question. Thank you for your presentation. I do think that you'll glean a lot from the pilot. So looking forward to hearing about that. My question has to do with existing institutions when they want to change a course here or there. How does that impact the definition of what's a new program? Now, how new is new? Is new brand new, or is it, oh, we're substituting maybe 3 or 4 classes with these other classes? Is there some type of review there?
Absolutely.
Thank
so
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. This letter of intent is for brand new. What you are describing is what we would call either a it would be a modification of some kind. We have the threshold of changing 50% of the program. We consider that a substantial modification. That has its own review process, but this letter of intent would not apply to substantial modifications. It would only apply to new graduate programs.
So yeah, only new graduate programs.
Yes.
And over the last year, program changes, modifications. Now institutions can change programs almost till 50% without any process. They just have to tell MAC that we have changed it. And we have done this because we see that we are in a very dynamic environment, and we want institutions to adopt their program with what's changing around their world. And we don't want that to be a bureaucratic process. 50% of the program can be changed, and we want institutions to leverage that opportunity as much as possible.
Well, thank you so much.
Great questions. Any other questions? Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the follow-up, but great question from Commissioner Thompson. So could you just help me understand, what about the narrow subset that are substantially modified over the 50% but are not new that this letter of intent covers? So in the event of an institution substantially modifying it, which might raise a concern from another institution for duplication and harm, how are we capturing that in this process? Or is there another process that will unfold so we have an early warning system for everything that might happen?
Great question. When an institution meets that threshold of more than 50%, they submit a program proposal with those substantial modifications outlined and identified. We put substantial modifications also out for circulation. So there is a 30-day comment period and objection period for substantial modifications. That is also when staff can indicate that there is potential duplication, and institutions will provide commentary when we see those substantial modifications go out for circulation. This is also where, as Secretary Rice said, it's important that institutions do keep us informed about those ever so slight one course here changes, so that over the course of 5 to 7 years, a program can change substantially and potentially meet that 50% threshold in these little chunks. So it is helpful when institutions let us know about those minor changes over time, so that we can track those changes, and staff can be thoughtful about that.
Any other questions? All right. I think with that, we are probably moving towards the phase of Dr. Dow again asking us to approve these regulations. Dr. Dow, if you don't mind repeating the required magic language for the law.
You got it. Not a problem. It is recommended that the Maryland Higher Education Commission approve the enclosed letter of intent template and authorize staff to implement the process as outlined beginning October 1st, 2025. Staff will continue to work with the PRPAC and other stakeholders to refine the process and return to the Commission with recommended recommendations following initial implementation.
I move to follow the recommendation just outlined by Dr. Dow. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. The regulations are approved. Ms. Ward, that was legally sufficient?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, I think we are at the end of our agenda. I wanted to just note for the record that we did have 11 of our 12 commissioners present. Commissioner Colonio joined. And I also wanted to note that Commissioner Agu, unfortunately, a couple of times got sort of kicked out of the meeting right when we were voting. But just for the record, Commissioner Agu, I think you abstained from the minutes because you weren't present last time, and you voted yes for all of the regulations. Is that right? Excellent. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I'm confident I don't have to make that motion. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. I look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday, August 27th at 10 in the morning. That will be an in-person meeting with a hybrid option. I would urge commissioners to be in person if at all possible. Many of us have not yet seen the new MHEC space, and it is worth seeing. And I think meetings are always better in person. So if you can make it in person, I encourage you to be there, and you will be receiving more materials before then. Chief of Staff Majors, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. Did you say a meeting next week, the 27th, or are you
I
speaking?
meant to say next month, Wednesday,
Okay.
August 27th.
Okay. All
No,
right.
not
Good.
next week. I may have misspoken, but I meant to say next month, Wednesday, August 27th at 10
Thank
a.m.
you.
That's our regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Terrified.
clarification. Okay. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. The meeting is
Great
adjourned.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.